Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our Faith Formation Tuesday. It's good to see all you here. I'm glad that you're here, and I hope that today's lesson will be meaningful for you and your family. I hope you all had a great Easter on Sunday. I don't know about you, but it was pretty strange for us not to all be together on Easter Sunday, right? We're used to getting dressed up, a lot of us in new dresses or outfits, or sometimes all the guys in a family have cool matching ties, and we come to the church and we're excited to see all the tulips and lilies and to finally get to say Alleluia after all that time. But that's not really how it worked this year. It was just me and Pastor Aaron and Miss Ann and Mr. Ryan and Elena and Catherine at church. And the rest of you were at home. And we're glad that a lot of you were able to join us on the computer. And we're thankful that we got to do that. But it was definitely different, right? It had me thinking about what it must have been like for the disciples in the first Easter. You know, when we think about it, they were very similar to us. They were scared. We're scared of different things. They were scared because they thought Jesus was gone. We know Jesus is alive, but there's some scary stuff going on right now, and we're all in our houses and don't get to see each other, so that can be a little bit scary and different, right? But even so, as they learned about Jesus being alive, they started to form what would become the church. And I want to talk a little bit about the church today, because even though we aren't gathering every Sunday in our sanctuary to worship together, we are still very much the church. And we want to talk about what that means and what that looks like right now. So, if you don't already have it, why don't you grab your Spark Story Bible, or adults that are joining us, grab your own Bible. I'm going to give you, press pause to grab those. Now, for those of you that are using a grown-up Bible, you're going to want to turn to the book of Acts, and the story that we're going to be sharing can be found in Acts chapter 2, verses 43 to 47, and then a little bit more of it in chapter 4, verses 32 to 37. So again, grown-ups, that's Acts chapter 2, verses 43 to 47, and chapter 4, verses 32 to 37. But those of you that are using the Spark Bible, you're going to turn to page 504. Yep, 504. When you get there, it's going to look like this. And it's going to tell us about early believers, those first people who heard the good news that Jesus was risen and began to believe in God and in Jesus and wanted to tell the world about that. So let's learn about them. Here we go. Some of the early believers were great at sharing. They shared their food and their clothes. They shared their money and their homes. They were so generous. No one was poor or needy because others gave without holding anything back. Together they saw many miracles and wonders. They met in the temple and they met in their homes. They talked about Jesus and they thanked God for blessing them. Then something amazing happened. When other people saw how happy these first believers were, sharing all they had and talking about Jesus, they believed too. They became Christians, and they shared their food and their clothes, their money and their homes. They became one big Christian family, and their church family grew and grew and grew. So let's see, these people, what did they have in common with us? They were meeting in their homes, sort of like we are now, right? And they talked about Jesus, which is what we are doing right now. And they thanked God for their many blessings, which we've already talked about. Some of you have been keeping track of the things that you are thankful for. Yeah? And the Bible tells us that when others see that, they say, what's going on here? We want to know what they have. And they learn about Jesus, and Jesus becomes part of their life too. Now, I've got this box of tissues sitting here, friends, and you might think to yourself, what does tissues have to do with the church? But I'm going to show you. So I've got this top tissue here, right? When I pull it out, what happens? The next one pops right up, doesn't it? Wait, let's see if that works again. Yep, works every time. Amazing. So what do you think? When I pull the tissue up, Does the next one come up because this one pulls on it, or because the ones underneath it push it up? What do you think? Can you tell? I actually think it's a little bit of both. And we can, as Christians, sort of be like those tissues, right? So sometimes people need our help, whether it's spiritually, whether they're having trouble in their relationship with God, whether it's physically because they're sick or they don't have some of their basic needs met, they don't have a home or they don't have clothes or they don't have food, or emotionally they're very sad or they're angry and they need help. And as a church, we can help lift them up and, like the ones underneath them, hold them up. So we can lift people up by finding ways to meet those needs, right? We can find ways to help provide food for people that don't have any, clothes for people that don't have any, homes for people that don't have any. We can support each other if we are sad or angry. Those are things we can do as the church. And we can help hold people up through our prayers and through the way our church helps as a whole community. So what are some ways that we can act like tissue Christians this week? That we can remember the early believers and think about the way they shared what they had with others. So what are some things that we can do? We can maybe you could say to your mom or your dad or whoever you're living with, or if you're living alone or you're just with one or two people, you can talk it over and find ways to help people. So our church is going to be collecting money and food donations for New Hope that are helping people in our community. You could do that. You could find some ways to things in your closet that you're not wearing and donate them to people that don't have them. We work with Family Promise. You can be praying for them and send them maybe some cards to encourage them. There's lots of things that we as a church can do to be the church, even though we're not all together, because all of us have Jesus in our heart. And so we can think about ways that we can lift each other up and hold each other up even when we're not in our building, because the church isn't our building, it's each of us. So I hope that this week you will think about and talk about with the people in your family ways that you can be the church, ways that you can help those in need through your prayers and through your actions. And maybe share with us in the comments ways that you and your family did that this week, so that we can celebrate the way that God is using each of us to bless the people in our community. I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for joining us.